Welcome to 7investing Now, a show that teaches you how to take a long-term view on investing by better understanding what's happening in the market now.
Good afternoon, 7 investors, and welcome to the Friday, the final day of April, last edition of the month of 7 Investing Now. We have a special treat today. I am joined by nearly all the 7 investing advisors. I, of course, am Daniel Brooks Klein. I'm the host of the show. I'm being joined by Matt Cochran, Steve Symington, Dana Abramovitz, and Simon Erickson. Max Chasko is on assignment. He had actually, because it's the 30th of the month and the 1st is tomorrow, that is when our new picks come out. Max is doing a lot of the work necessary to make those picks. So he's baking a cake with all the picks. And so I don't even know what he is doing. But this is an exciting jam-packed show. We're going to do something we call 7 on 7. That's 7 different investing topics. Most of them are earnings. We're going to hit on Domino's earnings. We are going to hit on Apple earnings with Anirban Mahante via tape. We're going to talk a little bit about Apple and healthcare with Simon. We are going to talk Amazon earnings. I'm going to talk McDonald's earnings. I was trying to do it while dressed as Grimace, but I could not find that costume. Matt's going to talk about Domino's, and we're going to talk about my favorite character ever, the Noid. The Noid is back. Welcome back, the Noid. But before we do that, it has been a very bizarre year. I mentioned on Wednesday's show, I'm seeing my mother for the first time in 14 months. I don't think aside from college, I've ever gone a month without seeing my mother, even while living here in Florida, because her sisters are here as well. And that made me think, like, what did I do during the pandemic? And I'd like everybody to share sort of what entertained them or what didn't entertain them. Did you have to do something else during the pandemic? And for me, I know mine and Matt's is the same. For me, it was the Disney Plus Marvel and Star Wars shows. The first time I felt a tiny bit of normal was at like 10:30 on a Friday night after everyone had gone to bed, just watching The Mandalorian. It was and then later WandaVision, and then Falcon and Winter Soldier, and later this summer Loki. It was solitary for me, which is how I tend to watch those shows, but it might have been like the only non-7 Investing Now hour where somewhere in the back of my head wasn't, crud, it's a pandemic and I can't do stuff. Matt Cochran, why don't you weigh in on Disney Plus as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing for me. It was almost like a family tradition for our Friday nights, which was actually kind of cool because linear TV kind of, has gone down. So like, it was almost like when I was growing up and we gather around the TV to watch TGIF on ABC or something, but we were watching Mandalorian or WandaVision or now Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which we're not quite through yet. But like most Friday nights, it was the family and either a lot of times with Dominoes, actually. So that was our Friday night tradition during the pandemic.
Matt, you're going to hate the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier when Winnie the Pooh shows up. It is an uncomfortable Disney crossover. That is a joke, of course. That does not happen. Steve Symington, is it log rolling? Is it doing that thing where you climb up a tree and have to cut off a piece? What is going on for entertainment in pandemic Montana?
We watched all of the Marvel movies in cinematic order together as a family, every single one of them. So that was great. Now we've moved on to Lord of the Rings, and I couldn't be more excited about that. My kids one of them was excited, and another one was indifferent. And then he started, and he's like crying and emotional, and I'm like, yes, this is good stuff. Like. Yeah.
I had never read The Lord of the Rings because someone told me to read The Hobbit, and it's one of 2 books I've ever gotten so bored with I put down. So I saw the first Lord of the Rings, having never read it. I went from the movie theater to a bookstore and bought the books and read all of the books in like 4 or 5 days. Dana Abramovitz,
good.
I know you've done something different. You had some unfortunate pandemic luck, but you are trying to turn lemons plus sugar plus water into lemonade.
Yes, I am definitely in the process of making lemonade and have been doing that all year long. So working on saving my business, my little fitness studio. And, I know you all have family. I'm alone in Houston. My family is in different places, so we've had a lot of Zoom calls. I also got to experience the whole online dating experience during a pandemic, which is quite interesting. I'm taking notes for a book.
When I met my wife, there was no online, let alone online dating. The internet was still like academic for use. We, of course, will take your questions and comments throughout the show. It could be on what we're talking about. Usually we make a graphic to show you the 7 topics, but we finalized the topics at like 11:54 or something like that. Simon Erickson, what is it? Are you making grappa? What are you doing during the pandemic here?
Upstream of that, Dan, we're actually doing gardening. Gardening is something I've never gotten into before the pandemic, but we have a young child here. And so she's really into the vegetable gardening and planting the flowers and doing all the fun part. And then it's dad that moves the dirt around. So that's an activity we've gotten to do together.
Simon, can you grow fruit-flavored gummy bears? Because that would go over well at my house. But
working on it, Dan. Working on it for sure.
I will point out, Dana Abramovitz is going to go first here. Most of our topics in 7 on 7 are purely investing related, but Dana follows the healthcare world. And I will point out, Dana, you were never alone when you're part of the 7 investing team. You can certainly rely on all of us. We are more than happy to be Phil and family. I could be the super annoying older brother if you want me to play the role of like older brother who borrows money, like whatever it is. Like we could absolutely fill in there. But we're going to talk about the CDC's new mask guidance and what it means for the economy. Let me give a few facts here before I throw some questions at you. You no longer have to wear a mask if you're vaccinated, if you're outside, unless you're at a concert or some other crowded event. You're allowed to hold small outdoor gatherings with other vaccinated people. And there wasn't really concrete guidance there. They didn't say how many people. I'm going to an indoor gathering with fully vaccinated family this weekend, except my cousin, who's also battling leukemia, is going to stay outside and we're going to sort of rotate out and see him. So it's a little different for everybody. But Dana, is this a good sign for business and that the summer will look, I don't know, a little bit normal?
I certainly think so. I think that, it's good news for everybody. People are, it's been a hard year for everyone, like my online dating experience, you guys watching, I don't even know what that is. Every time you guys talk about Disney and Netflix, I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, no, I think people are looking to go back to, socializing. So you're having that indoor gathering with your family. People want to see their family. So they're going to be traveling so that they can see their family. They're going to, go out to dinner, rent venues so that they can do things. And I think that will be good for business. In addition, people in general are just happier, right? I mean, I've noticed a shift in mood, people coming into my business. I feel, just general happiness. And I think that happiness is good for business.
Yeah, I have to admit, I felt dumb taking a walk in my neighborhood with no one around me wearing a mask. And after a while, I started carrying the mask instead of wearing it. Now, I still have one in my pocket in case I hit like a group of people that stops the traffic. But if I'm just walking by someone, quick wave hello, not wearing the mask. And it's 88 degrees and super humid here, so that is great. So Dana, as of Monday, more than 140 million Americans, it's about 42%, had at least one dose. And about 29% had a full course, either one dose of Johnson & Johnson or 2 doses of the Pfizer vaccine. Do you think we're going to reach herd immunity, the much vaunted, everybody wants it, herd immunity?
It's hard to say. And, I want to be optimistic. I don't want to be, the downer person, especially on a Friday, but it's, there's still so much that's not known, right? So the more and more people that get vaccinated, yes, we're moving towards herd immunity. It's just that, we don't know how long the antibodies are going to last. We don't know, how quickly the virus is going to continue to vary and, all the different variants and whether, all the vaccines will, work with all the different variants. So it's hard to know. But certainly, the scientists are collecting the data, doing the research. I mean, that's one of the most fascinating things for me is this is, like a huge, worldwide research experiment, right? And we're collecting data and we're learning as we go. And scientists are learning and sharing that knowledge with the community. And that's really helpful.
It is worth noting, just so we don't scare people, that the initial data on the variants has been very strong. The other issue is supply. If they decided, and I'll go on the record, Max Chasko does not think we will need a third dose of the vaccine. That is Max's opinion. He has a better scientific mind than I do. The CEO of Pfizer has said we might. But if we do, supply chains are in place. It will be a walk to CVS. You can walk in. It's actually a concern here in Florida that there are available appointments not being taken. And the question is that vaccine resistance? And we're not going to answer that because that's a political question. Or is it what I think it is more just like, yeah, as soon as it's super convenient for me at the CVS I'm at, then I'll get it. I know that's how my personal trainer's attitude has been because he can't really schedule things because his job makes it very, very difficult to do that. One final question, Dana, and this really relates to the economy and Mother's Day coming up and travel and all the other things. But are you worried about people, sort of letting down their guard and, going to packed events indoors without masks and licking strangers or whatever it is we're eager to get back to doing?
Not really. And because we've gone through so much as a community at large, I don't think that we're going to allow ourselves to slip back into the worst of it. And certainly, we've learned a lot. I think people are much more cautious. I certainly know where 6 feet is from standing somewhere. You start to feel uncomfortable if you're, too close to somebody. So I think that, a year of behavior, we've kind of learned how to do things. And I do think this is an opportunity to make improvements, right? So, one of the reasons I think that the virus was able to spread so much is that, we as a society just kind of, we're doing things poorly, right? We were stressed, we weren't eating, we weren't sleeping, we weren't exercising, and it really affected our immune systems. And so I think that, we've kind of learned from that. And so hopefully now we can, get the sleep that we need, rest a little bit, prioritize the things that, are really important to us. And if that means, spending time with your family, then you're going to find a way to do that. You guys have all spent time with your families, so I think that will continue to be.
I'm very eager to spend time with the world, and I do think there are some things we've learned. Like if it's flu season and you're susceptible, wearing a mask will become publicly acceptable. Maybe not in Florida and Texas, but in many of the parts of the world, it's at least not going to look weird. It's not going to look like you're robbing the 7-Eleven, which I think was the fear in the early days of mask wearing, that most places actually didn't allow you to wear a mask. There were rules where you couldn't wear a mask because people wear masks to avoid being arrested when they rob a place. That is no longer how we're going to be doing it. We are going to move away from Dana. And Dana, I know you have to drop out at some point, so whenever you do, not a problem. We're going to head into a bit of an earnings-a-palooza. We would love your questions, your comments. Say hello. Tell us the first thing you're going to do once you're fully vaccinated and the world is normalish. But let's go to Steve Symington. Steve, Amazon had a crazy good blowout quarter. That's a theme we're going to be hitting over and over again.
Yeah. Amazon, its quarter was absolutely insane. And it's one of those things where you look at the stock price, it kind of rallied to a record high today. It's been interesting because you look, it's only up like 1.5%, but 3,000 and change per share for people who held a long time ago. I mean, this is one of those moves where it's moving up more than their cost basis. But the quarter was ridiculous, might be the best word. I mean, we saw net sales climb 44% year over year to 108.5 billion. That's 3 months of sales, right? Net income more than tripled to $15.79 per share. Amazon, we all know how Amazon is with net income. It scarcely turned a profit for the first 20 years of its public life anyway. But both of those numbers, basically crushed estimates. AWS revenue, kind of a high margin source of revenue now. That's beautiful for them. Climbed 32% to 13.5 billion. That's a $54 billion annual run rate business now. Operating cash flow is up 69% to 67.2 billion. Free cash flow up a couple of $1 billion to 26.4 billion. 3 months, people. These numbers are absolutely insane. And it really doesn't show any signs of letting up. Of course, growth is going to decelerate on a year-over-year basis, but in the second quarter, they see it coming in around 110 billion to 116 billion. Partly because they're moving Prime Day up from October because they pushed it back last year because of the pandemic. But really incredible growth at scale. No signs of sort of slowing down or seeing this kind of like, oop, the pandemic's easing, we're not going to buy as much from Amazon. That's just not the case.
Steve, is some of this just that Amazon has captured new customers and intensified loyalty with existing customers? I mean, I've always been a big Amazon buyer, but I've ordered 3 things today. I have food coming from Whole Food that will arrive at some point after this show. I bought a battery for my key fob. Like, is it just sort of like Amazon is now just really a part of our world?
Yeah, it really is. And now I have the Little Mermaid song stuck in my head. Thanks for that. But the 175 million Prime members, Jeff Bezos said, which is just incredible. Each of them paying, what is it, $129 a year? I don't even remember because I just sort of thoughtlessly let it renew because it's a no-brainer, right? And then you add in AWS, this kind of fast-growing, high-margin cloud business into the mix. And Amazon's a titan that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
I recorded a podcast this morning with our friends over at the Broadcast Retirement Network, and what we talked about was the fact that by 2025, Amazon will be a bigger retailer than Walmart, and it is a trajectory that there is almost nothing Walmart can do to reverse. Now, that doesn't mean Walmart's not crushing it. They absolutely are, but you are going to see. So we are going to keep the earnings express rolling. I talked a couple of days ago with Anirban Mahante on Apple earnings. So if you are ready to play that, Sam Bailey, that would be fabulous.
Anirban Mahante, thank you for joining us, albeit via tape, to do 7 on 7. And we all got very excited when Apple reported. And this is the second crazy, amazing Apple quarter. I haven't really looked at the numbers that much. A little bit too much show prep to do since they came out. But I remember last quarter when they came out, I thought, oh my God, this is the best earnings report I've ever seen. Like every category is up double digits. And this quarter is arguably better. Give us some of the top line numbers.
So here's the thing. Revenue was up 54%. Okay, this is a $2.3 trillion, whatever market cap company. 54% revenue up. Every segment was up double digits. iPhone was up like 60%. I think iPad was up like 70%. If I look at it, so Mac was up 70%. iPad was up 78%. So just incredible numbers.
A lot of Mac buyers who are right now really angry because, like me, they bought a Mac before they introduced the like super cool looking new Macs. And I thought my iMac was like the sleekest thing in the world. And now I feel like it's like an old like cabinet television, like with like a 13-inch screen. I am disappointed about this. But so the numbers were great. Let's talk about their cash on hand. They are sitting on like buy a nice country level of cash, more or less.
Yep. Yeah. So they have I think $90 billion net cash if you back out the debt. They announced a huge buyback. I think they announced exactly $90 billion of additional buyback authorization. They increased the dividend. What I think they're basically trying to do is they're trying to get to cash neutral pretty quickly. I think Apple has had like a wonderful run. I think one thing I'll point out though is this quarter looks even more amazing. I mean, I'm not taking away anything. Those numbers are astounding. And the earnings and the cash flow and the margins, they're just astounding. And they're at scale. But they're in comparison with March 2020, which was like the peak of pandemic,
like fighting for
closures,
fighting for toilet paper and stores not open that sold. And that being said, the comps aren't, that quarter actually wasn't bad because there were all the kids at home that needed iPads. The one question I have on this report is why are iPad sales up so much? I look at the iPad and we've talked about this. I don't need it. Like I have a 12-inch MacBook. I have a lighter MacBook that I travel with, and I have a phone. I haven't touched my iPad other than like during a hurricane to watch movies on as an added device. Who's buying these?
Well, between the creatives and the kids and the people who think they must have it, right? I mean, here's my problem, right? Every time they announce something new, I feel like I need it, even though I don't need it, right? I mean, I'm just addicted to Apple. I'm sure there are a lot of other addicted users to Apple, and then there's a lot of other, useful use cases. So I think again, like I think they find buyers. And I think one of the big things that has happened in the pandemic, I think, is that they've expanded their horizons and brought in a lot of new users, which is just basically going to juice the ecosystem going forward. So
you were talking to someone, you're talking to someone that has 2 Mac laptops and an iMac, an Apple Watch, an iPhone. Both my wife and son have iPhones as well. They don't have Macs. I couldn't justify that expense. My wife uses a PC at work. My son is careless, so I wasn't particularly going to let him use an old Mac of mine or justify that. But let's talk about services. Their service line, it's up 26%, 26 and change. And that's an area where they said, we're going to grow this. And I love when a company tells you what it's going to do and then actually does it. I'm sure you know how rarely that actually happens.
Yeah. So I think, again, like Tim Cook has been a fantastic steward, a very underrated CEO. He has just done a fantastic job post jobs. And yeah, services has been a great, I mean, that's the thing, right? The ecosystem grows and the number of users grow. That allows them to grow the ecosystem of services, which makes the Apple whole ecosystem even more pleasurable to use. And yeah, it's just working as planned. You know, again, the thing is that, you know, you and I might have different views on Apple TV Plus, but maybe other people actually like it. So that's the thing. And there's a little bit of
I don't think it's driving one subscription. I don't think it's selling one iMac. So I feel like it's a vanity play. It's really cool to be in the TV business. I feel the same way about Amazon Prime. And The Boys was probably my favorite show of last year. But you know what? If whoever created that had put it on HBO Max or any other format, I would have found that show. So I just feel like there's not a need. I think podcasts makes more sense to actually drive users to Apple. But as we run out of time here, is Apple stock a buy? And I know it's a great company, but it's also a $2 trillion valuation.
Yeah, like I personally own Apple. So, you know, I think Apple is a great portfolio, like a core holding to have. It's not going to shoot the lights out, but I think it's a market beater going forward. 2 trillion, you know, that's just a number. You know, we could say, like, you know, the S&P 500 goes up over time so that the 2 trillion, you know, could become 4 trillion going forward. But just, I think one thing that, you know, Simon Erickson was saying, how many shares have Apple bought back, right? It bought back about 25% of the shares in last. So, I mean, as the share count keeps decreasing, basically there's more value created for the remaining shareholders. So I think long-term shareholders are going to do just fine with that.
I don't own Apple directly, but I consider that I own it same as Amazon because so much of my 401k, if you look at the various tech funds I've selected there, they're very heavily weighted to Apple and Amazon and probably Facebook and Google too, which are not companies I'm as bullish on. That being said, Anirban Mahante, I want to get back to the show. So thank you for doing this. You'll be on again at the end of the program. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
Anirban Mahante, thank you for doing that. I love talking to Anirban. He is so smart and comes from a different perspective sometimes than I do. We follow a lot of the same companies and we think about them differently. We're going to have him on Monday's show, answering some of Steve's comments on Tesla earnings. We taped that for today, but because we have so much of the team here today, but tomorrow is May 1st. May 1st is when our new picks come out. Simon Erickson, what do you task us with each month? The core, the absolute heart of 7 Investing is what?
Yeah, we every month we have the same question, which is, what's your best idea? You know, I go to everybody on the team and I say, what's your best idea in the stock market right now? Let's not throw out, you know, a zillion tickers out there that we are kind of interested in. It's like, what is the best pick for investors right now? And we have different perspectives on that, Dan. You know, sometimes we pick value companies. Sometimes we pick big tech companies. Sometimes we pick small healthcare companies. And then we kind of hand the baton to our subscribers and say, what is the right pick that we have done the research for you, that for you? And we think that investing is such a personal thing and different people have different risk tolerances and different markets they're interested in. We like to do a lot of the research, present a full buffet of options with 7 ideas every month, which represents our 7 best ideas for each of the advisors on this team.
And we're not telling you to buy 7 stocks every month. What we're saying is, I liken it to movie reviews. If there's a movie reviewer who you always agree with, there's a pretty good chance that their opinion on a movie you haven't seen is going to be correct for you. So if you look at what Steve invests in and it sort of is your risk portfolio, it's stuff you're interested in, well, then you use Steve's research. Maybe something like what I cover in retail and entertainment and a little bit of travel spaces, maybe that's an area you're not invested in and you're willing to take my word for it and you find a stock or two that I pick. I buy all of Max Chatsko's stocks because to add risk to my portfolio, because I personally am not all that risky. So how do you subscribe? This one is very simple. First, you have to get some Dogecoin. Then you have to go and equip. No, you go to 7investing.com/subscribe. It is an easy registration. It will cost you $17 a month or $170 for a year. I am not a mathematician, but there are 12 months in the year. There is 13 months if we went by the Hebrew calendar, but we do not. We go by the regular calendar. There's not always 13 months. Every few years, there's 13 months. In our case, we go by a 12-month calendar, so that is 2 months for free. This is amazing investing advice. This is a well-schooled team. I won't go through our credentials, but they are on the 7 Investing website. If you want to know who we are and why you should trust us, I trust us. I have bought stocks because of what we do. So this will not be an off day for Steve Symington and Simon Erickson tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a busy, busy day. We welcome you to come along for the ride. But Matt, we talked a little bit about the top of the program about how the Noid is back. The Noid is back in a commercial, and I really enjoyed it. There is some sort of crossover between the Noid and Crash Bandicoot. I don't know who that is. But Domino's, we talk a lot about letting your winners win. I don't own Domino's because I don't like their pizza, and that might be the dumbest decision I've ever made. Because Domino's has shown it is like Bret Hart, it is the excellence of execution. They do everything well, where frankly, if they switched out their pizza with a cardboard box, I don't think it would impact their sales all that much. But their quarter was beyond good, right?
Yeah, once again, I mean, Domino's just delivers, no pun intended. Global sales were up 14%. That's adjusted for foreign currency. They opened 175 net new stores. That included the one store closure they had. Here's where it gets impressive, Dan, to your point about how they just continue to deliver great earnings quarter after quarter. U.S. same-store sales growth was up 13.4%. That marks 40 straight quarters of positive comparable sales growth. International same-store sales was up almost 12%. That's 109 straight quarters of international same-store sales growth. That's about 28 years of positive international same-store sales growth. Their EPS was actually down because they were lapping some tax benefits from last year, but if you adjusted for that, they were up about 22%. So just another great quarter from Domino's.
So, Matt, I've always watched that number, the how many straight quarters. Is this going to be the quarter a year from now when there's no pandemic and we can go out for better pizza or maybe go to other places? You and I met at a pizza place last week. Do you think there's the possibility that they just have a flat or even a down quarter because these numbers, and that does not affect their long-term trajectory. Let me be very clear about that. But do you think that's possible?
Okay, so if it was going to happen, there's a good chance that streak gets broken this year, right? Because they're coming up on some incredible comp numbers. Because during COVID, when people could not go out to eat, they ordered takeout or delivery, and Domino's just dominates that category, right? However, I don't think it's going to happen. During the conference call, they talked about a few levers they can pull. So, first of all, marketing. They did not aggressively market this last year. They didn't have to. They didn't even have to aggressively market this last quarter. So yes, the Noid was back, Dan, to your point, but there's parts during the year where they normally aggressively market. They did not do that this past year. So they think they can pull that lever. Another one is carryout. So they talk about this a lot. Carryout, numbers were affected by COVID. People didn't want to go out the house to pick up food. They just wanted to call in to deliver. They think the carryout business can pick up. There's a couple things driving that. They have car side delivery now where you just park in front of Domino's, you click I'm here on their app, and where your car information is already in, and they just bring out the pizza. And even in the app, you can put it in the trunk, or put it in the rear passenger side. So you can mark exactly where you want people to come in. It's contactless. You just pull up into the parking lot and they bring it out to you. And then, finally, their fortressing strategy. So like their fortressing strategy is basically like they're increasing their store presence in existing markets. And the thought there is that they're going to provide better service to its customers by shrinking the geographic coverage per store. So like basically they're opening their stores closer to each other. And that speeds up delivery times, and that gives customers more convenient locations to choose from when ordering carryout. Now this does cannibalize existing store sales a little bit, but the idea is that it will increase Domino's market share, not just with competing pizza chains, but with all quick service restaurants.
And Domino's is also a relatively inexpensive build. There's not a lot of technologies in a Domino's. It's sort of just like a pizza conveyor factory, and they have to put the boxes together. This is a company, and I'm going to talk about McDonald's earning next. I'm going to skip over Simon and do Simon in the 6th segment so we can get everything out. But I think there is a major parallel between Domino's, McDonald's, and to a similar extent, Starbucks. Though Starbucks did take a hit from restaurants, the dining rooms being closed. They all invested heavily in technology before the pandemic. This wasn't, oh my God, a pandemic hit, how are we going to deliver? Domino's is best-in-class delivery before this. They did the work. The Domino's Pizza Tracker actually has so many patents and copyrights, it makes it really difficult for any other rival to show you the progress of your pizza or your delivery order. BJ's, the restaurant chain, does something kind of similar, and that's the closest one I've ever seen. So Domino's has invested all along, and you see this. Good companies, and I'll say that of Target, of Walmart, of Dick's Sporting Goods, of Best Buy, of whoever it is, they weren't investing because they saw a pandemic coming. Maybe there's some people in the health space that saw it coming. Maybe there was in case of emergency, you break glass plan somewhere. But they were investing because Domino's wants to be able to bring you a pizza when you're at the beach. They can do that now. Domino's wants to be able to find you at an outdoor concert or who knows what and bring you a pizza. They can't quite do that, but they're getting there. So, and McDonald's is the same way. So I'm going to seg a little bit here into my segment.
Hold on, Dan.
Go ahead, Matt.
Real quick. Do you know the difference between a good pizza joke and a bad pizza joke? The delivery.
Oh, dear God. Simon Erickson, we will be taking nominations for a new 7th advisor here at 7 Investing. No, just kidding, of course, here. We would like your questions and comments. I know it's a weird show to comment on. We appreciate so many of you watching. You don't have to comment. Daniel Kern says, a Bret Hart analogy. I love it. Please do the rest of the show in a Macho Man voice for good measure. Oh yeah, not going to be able to do that one. But of course, perhaps after the show, Simon will snap into a Slim Jim. That being said, yes, I am a closet pro wrestling fan, which is a weird thing for a semi-intellectual snob to admit live on television. But I've talked about this before. So McDonald's has absolutely beaten the performance of before the pandemic. So you can eat inside a McDonald's here in Florida. There's capacity limits. They're not all open. But their same store sales growth was 13.6. A good number for a restaurant would be 2 or 3%. That is a stunning number. And I think you see a parallel between Domino's and McDonald's here. You know what McDonald's and Domino's are? They're comfort food. They're familiar. They're also cheap, which is valuable. They're easy, but there is just something sort of homey and bringing back college about ordering these foods. I haven't been to either of these places in quite a long time, but that's more a fashion of I don't eat much gluten. Though Domino's weirdly has the best gluten-free pizza. I think it's a better pizza than their actual pizza, but that is neither here nor there. Their earnings beat expectations. They came in at $1.92 a share. Revenue was about $5.12 billion, and they are being driven by chicken sandwich sales. Why do I bring this up? So a new chicken sandwich that looks like the Popeyes chicken sandwich has become sort of a de facto thing. There is going to be a problem, not just for McDonald's, and maybe not for McDonald's because they control so much of the supply chain, but we're heading into a shortage of chicken in the United States. Chickens grow very quickly, so this can be corrected in a few months, but Bojangles, a Florida-based biscuit chain that does fried chicken tenders, did not have chicken fingers at 700 of its restaurants this week. This is a bit of a let's call it a yellow flag for McDonald's, something to watch out. They also expect sales in the following quarter to outpace 2019. So this is an investing lesson, and you need to look at what companies are doing to lay the groundwork for future success. I've talked a lot about that with Amazon, with Walmart, and I've talked about it with Kroger, because I think when the pandemic ends, Kroger sales are going to tumble because we're not going to need them as much. And they're trying. They're investing in digital marketplaces and other things, but I don't know that they're going to be able to keep up with that at the level they need to, because the infrastructure, Matt, I don't think it's really possible to beat Domino's infrastructure. And McDonald's has relied heavily on third parties, but they've also built out their own digital ecosystem. Matt, is that just like an unassailable advantage for Domino's?
I don't know if it's unassailable. It is certainly difficult. Like to your point, Dan, Domino's actually built they built their own point of sale system so that they could integrate technology into it better. And that's just like, as far as I know, that's unheard of, right? I mean, that's just like that's a very unique advantage. They take it very seriously. Domino's is also like they're just never been afraid to experiment either. Like they have a partnership now with Neuro, a robotics company out of California, and they're delivering autonomously with these robots pizza to certain places in Houston. So Domino's, like they know that might not be the future, but they're not afraid to experiment, and they have built their own stuff in-house. It's an incredible advantage, no doubt.
In a minute, we're going to take Nick's question. Then we're going to get to Simon. But I don't know if any of you watch Saturday Night Live regularly, but last year they did a skit where they were selling like essentially fake people so you could justify your giant room service order. So when you're ordering like 3 sundaes and 2 appetizers and 2 entrees, the person delivering it would see like fake people in the background. I actually think ordering via app makes it more likely that you are not going to make good choices. And that is good for Domino's. That is good for McDonald's. Like, I know, like, I'm not the skinniest guy in the world. If I walk into McDonald's, I'm probably self-conscious about what I'm ordering. But if you're ordering via the app and it's 2 a.m. and, you know, you've maybe made some bad decisions with what you've had to drink, you are absolutely adding a McFlurry to your McDonald's order, or getting that 2 for $4 sandwiches deal, or whatever it is. So I think the app, you cannot downplay how much it gets rid of the shame factor, and that makes it, not having to interact with a person, is going to be good for sales of things we don't necessarily want to be seen publicly consuming. We'll take that comment from Nick Sam Bailey, our director behind the class. We appreciate that. Is there any truth that McDonald's operates like a real estate company, and the income they report is only a small percentage of stores? So McDonald's does report sales. You have to get into, McDonald's is largely a franchise company, at least here in the US, which is kind of an unassailable model because they still do well, even if the sales are down. But McDonald's is locked in like a constant battle with its franchise holders. The franchise holders are very powerful. So something like all-day breakfast, which corporate would like to bring back, the franchise holders don't like the added expense and the difficulty of doing it. McDonald's had to really fight with its franchisees to spend the money to do what they call Store of the Future, which was the mobile ordering kiosks, some new equipment, being able to have digitized drive-through and the AI technology they're using. So McDonald's is more so than any other franchise company, because of the size of some of their franchisees, they actually have to kind of be in a partnership with them. But yes, it is a very, very good business model. That being said, we are going to seg into Simon Erickson with our 6th topic here on 7 on 7. And Simon, you know I'm really interested in this one because I use my Apple Watch to monitor various aspects of my health. But you wanted to talk a little bit about Apple and their healthcare kits and other products.
I did, Dan. I'm going to be a little bit controversial and contrarian in this segment. So please feel free to send any hate mail to info@7investing.com or @7innovator on Twitter. But, you know, I'm thinking bigger picture about Apple on this one. And Nirban did a great job of recapping the quarter. But we're buy and hold long-term investors at 7investing. Every position we take on the scorecard, we're letting it run indefinitely. And so when we're talking about Apple, we're not talking about Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak messing around in Woz's garage in Cupertino, California anymore, right? We're talking about a company that's churning out $100 billion a year in operating cash flow and is doing $100 billion a quarter in revenue. That's 11 zeros, right? This is getting up into the pace of the total amount that the world is spending on oncology drugs every year, is the amount of cash flow that Apple's putting to work every single year, that it has options for management to use. cash flow is what's going into the bank after it pays all of its bills. And what has Apple been doing with it? It's been buying back shares and it's been paying a dividend. In fact, in just this most recent quarter, Apple churned out $24 billion of operating cash flow. And what did they spend it on? They spent $23 billion of it on share repurchases and on dividends. And Apple's doing that because it doesn't have internal projects that it thinks are profitable enough to put that money to work right now. And the long-term growth investor in me acknowledges that Apple's an awesome company. It didn't get to be a $2.2 trillion company out of nowhere. But on the other hand, I've got some questions about this, right? There's a lot of very good analysis that says that we might have pre-COVID hit peak smartphone. For Apple, at least. You know, we saw fantastic year-over-year growth, as Anirban pointed out. But again, that's compared to last year, where the numbers were much lower because we were in the middle of the pandemic. I don't think that we're going to see 65% growth in iPhones and iPads next year, year over year. I think that we're kind of to start getting to where its core business of consumer devices is starting to tap out. And so my question as a long-term investor is, what is going to move the needle for this large company if it can't continue to focus on selling $1,000 plus phones with more and more gadgets attached to them?
Simon, let me jump in here that Apple acknowledges that it's in a super cycle. And the way iPhone sales work, which at times have been about 70% of Apple sales, the Mac numbers, as huge as they are, the $1 billion in watches, those are actually kind of irrelevant compared to the iPhone numbers. What happens with the iPhone is every few years, the people who trade in their phone on a 2 to 4 year basis, rather than people like me who do on an every year basis, there needs to be a big change. The catalyst now was 5G. This was the first iPhone with 5G. So we don't know. It is very likely next year is a down year for iPhone sales. We don't know if it's going to be 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. So there will be absolute lumpiness. But Simon, where do you expect the growth to come from?
Yeah, I think that, Apple publicly acknowledges that it's going to have to be in healthcare. This is the next big horizon for Apple to grow into. It's a $4 trillion market in the United States alone. And what's more important is what's most important to people when it comes to healthcare. I mean, Dana can answer this question in her sleep. It's privacy and it's the user experience. It's becoming more and more consumer facing, less and less just the hospital takes care of everything for you. And I think this is the big opportunity that Apple acknowledges. But I'm starting to think about, if Apple is really churning out $100 billion of cash flow, and every tech company on the planet wants to get into healthcare, including Facebook, including Alphabet, how can Apple make a really, really big splash, being it's 2 billion plus people who have bought a device globally, and the 100 million plus that have an Apple Watch purchased already? Dan, I know you're a large percentage of that number yourself. But how do we get the momentum behind this field? Because I really think that is important. And I think that Apple is going to have to pursue an acquisition strategy on this one. I think that they've tried to kind of build this from the ground up, saying, hey, we can do pulse oximeters, we can do blood pressure monitors, we can do fitness apps, and all part of the iPhone. I'm sorry, the iWatch, or the Apple Watch rather. But I think that really you want to grab a much larger user base, tens of millions of people that are plugged in to telemedicine, to remote monitoring, to proactive preventive healthcare. And Apple's got a really big opportunity if they do this right. But on the other hand, this is really bad, in my opinion, if Apple drops the ball and falls a step behind Alphabet, who is also aggressively going after this field right now.
I actually think Amazon is the leader at the moment. Amazon is rolling out its employee-based healthcare to other companies in the areas where it operates. I think they're sort of farther along in testing. Now, Apple is the leader in devices. There's a lot of info. Simon, do you think they'll, and this is kind of a long question, do you think they'll buy Teladoc, which would be the big giant play here, or they'll do the typical Apple thing where for 2 years, every month they'll buy one $50 to $200 million company you've never heard of, get rid of their product, and all of a sudden that product becomes a feature somewhere in the Apple eco universe? That's what they've been doing to grow a lot of their other spaces.
Yeah, I think Apple and Tesla have followed the same model, Dan, which is basically grow it yourself, right? Elon wants to build everything from scratch, including the wires that he configures himself personally. Tim Cook has done the same thing, compile your supply chain, make it super efficient, but still make small acquisitions that you grow organically. But some of the best acquisitions we've seen, whether it might be YouTube or Instagram or Facebook and Google, have done a fantastic job of buying large user bases, plugging them into the existing ecosystem, and then letting it take off from there. I think the question for Teladoc right now is, can that really integrate with Apple Suite? You've got the Apple Health Kit, which is kind of the consolidated group of all the data itself. And then you've got a software development kit on top of that for people to build things on top of. But I think that part of this has to be, you get a user base, you get it plugged in, you get the platforms playing nicely with one another. And then Apple starts giving away free devices, whether it's something that can monitor your blood pressure or can monitor your heart rate, or something that's included with every Apple purchase of those 1.2 billion people that are buying Apple devices. Get them in this ecosystem, get them willing to contribute data, and Apple takes the hit on the hardware itself. But I think this has to be the next horizon for Apple to go after.
I think Apple's going to use that model, but I don't think they have to give the device away. I think people will actually pay for the device. Now, that might mean devices that aren't building in a profit margin to get more of them out there. If you could see what the Apple Watch already does, it tells me my heart rate. It can do an EKG. It can do all sorts. I fully expect we're a generation or two away from blood pressure, from the technology exists to tell you whether you're dehydrated, though the people selling that right now are Gatorade. So that it feels like Gatorade's going to think I'm dehydrated more often than I might actually be dehydrated. But that technology exists. So I think you're going to see an Apple Watch that can tie into telemedicine, where you give your doctor permission to look at your vitals. So a lot of what you do when you get a physical is just really basic, like open your mouth and say, take your blood pressure, and I do think Apple's going to do a lot of that. Simon Erickson, this is something we are going to be following. This might be, and Dana, this is why we were so excited to have you on the team, Max Chasko as well. I think this is probably going to be the story of the next decade alongside space exploration. Those are probably 1-2 for where humanity is going, assuming the zombie apocalypse does not happen and murder hornets know their place and stay in check. We've got one more topic here on 7 and 7. If you got any last questions you'd like to ask us, it could be anything. We'll have a few minutes at the end of the show, but we appreciate you watching 7 Investing Now. And I'm going to go around the room. I'll go first because I don't know that Dana, and Dana, if you want to opt out, I don't think you were expecting to be here. So feel free to pass on this if there isn't one you've thought about. But what investing lesson do you think needs to be taught either at school or by parents to their kids? And for me, the number one thing, and I have a kid who can be very material, it is live below your means. One of the things we have always done is not spent every dime we could on a house, not purchase new cars. Could I afford a new car? Yes. Do I drive a new car? No, because if things go wrong, there is more of a cushion there. If an opportunity comes up to invest or to go on a trip or who knows what, living below your means allows you to do that. I will let Matt Cochran, you have the most kids, so we'll go by most kids to least. Matt, what advice do you want to pass on to kids?
Well, I mean, I think your lesson is a great one, Dan. Definitely live below your means is right up there. The other thing I would say is the magic of compound interest, right? I mean, one, I think there's two great lessons from that. It's not intuitive to know, to understand. At least it wasn't for me. Like the magic compound interest, I almost years and years ago when I was really trying to grasp it, I almost did it by hand for several years out, just trying to really understand it. And what that does is it really incentivizes them to start young. Get that time on your side, because that magic you don't see right away, right? It happens in the second, third, fourth decades of investing, not the first. And two, it's encouraging to know, because when you start off, and I remember starting off with a couple $1,000s to invest. And when you have $2,000 in the market and you make 10% your first year, you made $200, which it could really be well, what's the big deal? I made $200, all that for $200. And then, a little bit later on, a few years later, it's $20,000 and you made $2,000. And then, on and on and on. And then soon you have $200,000 in the market, and you make $20,000 that year from your 10% gains. And just to see that and understand that, to know that okay, it's starting off small, but I understand that this is going to be a snowball, and that the more I put in now, the quicker that snowball is going to get going. So I just think making sure they understand compound interest.
And it's the good kind of snowball, not the hostess kind of snowball. If I could go back in time and tell myself anything, it would be 16-year-old me, put $1,000 in the bank. Whatever you have to do to get $1,000, not in the bank, in the stock market, invest it. And even if that's all I did, 47-year-old me would be really happy. Look at charts of what the return is, and we probably should have grabbed one, but we didn't, because I didn't know what any of us were going to be talking about here. Look at what that $1,000 turns into over 40 years. It's astounding.
It's amazing. I look back all the time. I didn't get started investing until I was in my mid-30s, and I think about all the money I essentially wasted, in my younger days. And it's a hard lesson to learn, but I hope my kids don't repeat it.
These are lessons we've learned. This is why, and I hope my kid will learn these lessons. I can't force him to do it in another year when he's 18. Right now, I can drive it home as much as possible. Steve Symington, you have multiple children. What is the one lesson you're trying to get across to them or wish they were taught in school?
Well, both those lessons are fantastic already, but one of the big things I'm trying to do with my own kids is to ensure that to not be scared of it. Right? Don't be scared of investing. It doesn't have to be an intimidating topic. And, for a lot of people, it seems like, oh, the stock market, that's what rich people do. Or this is one of those things that everybody's kind of scared of doing because they're scared of losing money. They're scared of taking risk. And I think just really exposing them to investing early. And there's more tools than ever to do that now. And, Stockpile, I believe it is, has a neat little app where you can actually open up an account for your kids and they can download it and say, I'm the kid, logging in and pretty slick, actually, that they can look at this and they can track their purchases and you have some control over what they do. I have a Capital One account and they're actually advertising a checking account for teenagers now. And, there's all kinds of tools to really get, where you can say, this is how you put money in a brokerage account, from that checking account. And this is how you buy, this is how you sell. These are the things you should learn along the way. And, just little lessons along the way to expose them early and make it so it's not intimidating.
It's very much like that scrubbed from history episode of The Cosby Show, where Bill Cosby and his family set up explaining to his older son exactly what things cost by, giving him X amount to pretend money, showing him how rent worked. I talk a lot about this with my son. Like, he wants to buy things the second he has money. Mm-hmm. And I will explain to him, you can do that because I pay for the stuff you need. So if I said, hey, you need new shorts, great. You got birthday money, go buy shorts. Then he would not have money to buy a $200 pair of sneakers or hoodie or whatever it is. So we actually try to make big purchases like that something that are thoughtful, no matter what the financial situation is. Because as I've talked a lot about as a parent, we'll come to Simon in a second. Dana Abramovitz has left the building. She has to go teach a class. But that being said, I've tried to explain to my son that I have money. He doesn't have money. Like, he doesn't have a job. Like, he doesn't pay rent or do. So just because he got some money for his birthday doesn't mean it's time to run out. We don't have a lot of kids in my family, so he gets an excessive amount of birthday presents, at least from my father's side of the family. But Simon Erickson, you're a little early in the game here. You're more at like piggy bank and allowance stage. But as your child grows older, what lesson are you, as the leader of a investing company? I feel a lot of pressure about this because of what we do. What lesson are you hoping to impart?
All of those are fantastic lessons. The only one that I'll add that hasn't been spoken up about yet is risk versus reward. When you're young, you're just going to say, hey, I want to go after the sexiest, fastest growing company out there. I want to go invest in this and make a ton of money. You've got to remember the risk side of that too. There is no free lunch in the stock market. And it's fine to take those big swings for the fences, but make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. That would be my lesson.
These are all great lessons. These are themes we're going to talk about a lot. We're going to bring on, we've done this before, we're going to bring on some younger investors and talk about how they get started and what their journey's like. The stock market wasn't something I'd heard of. Like, when I was 17, I did not know what the stock market was, other than newspapers had page after page of stock market listings, but I couldn't have explained to you what a stock was. It's out there now. There is much more transparency on what the stock market is. It is much easier to get into the stock market. Let's take this last question from D, and then we will hit our finisher. Question. ML, I don't know what ML stands for.
Machine learning, Dan. Yep, machine learning.
Oh, machine learning and deep learning workloads are growing exponentially. Which companies are poised to take advantage of this trend? I won't answer this one. I will throw it to Simon and then Steve, because they are going to sound a lot smarter than I would.
PyTorch, TensorFlow, pick your AI platform that you want to talk about in cocktail parties now. Steve's been doing this for 20 years. I know that you know it better than most out there, Steve, but this is no doubt workloads are moving to the cloud and they're starting to use AI to take advantage of more information that's available. So which companies are primed to take most advantage of this trend? I mean, can we put up 7investing.com/subscribe at this point? I follow Steve's picks, which are basically a lot of them, at least, based on AI. Steve, you had an AI as a service company that we were talking about not too long ago. I mean, like, we've got a collection of picks. Maybe we don't reveal all of them right here, but I do think there's a crop of opportunities that are out there for sure.
So you actually took this exactly where I wanted you to take it. Because what you get from the subscriptions is you get that answer. You get the what is our top pick in travel, in AI, in machine learning. And if you subscribe and you look at the site and go, how the hell do I find that? You send an email to info@7investing.com. And as a subscriber, Steve answers that question and say, well, I've picked these few. The other thing I will really warn people about, because I think we're all guilty of this, there is no one magic company in this space. Everyone in 5G and machine learning and AI, they want us to give this like company they've never heard of that's going to be this like, 100 bagger. And that happens. But what's more likely is you're going to own 5 of Steve's picks, 7 of Steve's picks, whatever it is. And a percentage of them will do very, very well. We can identify who's likely to win. We can't always identify every winner and how big they're going to win. Steve, I'll give you the last word here.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I'll note is, I mean, there are literally hundreds of ways as an investor you can take advantage of machine learning and deep learning workloads. I mean, you could invest in the companies that provide, the internet infrastructure that'll support a lot of the cloud computing efforts. You can invest in chip makers that create chips that are well suited to machine learning and deep learning tasks. You can invest in the software as a service companies on that side of things. There are a lot of different ways. And then, like Simon mentioned, some of a lot of the companies on our scorecard that we picked for this reason exactly, big data companies. So I won't single out, just which companies are primed to take advantage of this trend, as you asked, because there are so many. And I mean, literally dozens of fantastic investment opportunities. And I think part of what we do at 7investing for subscribers is determine when it's timely to add, or open or add to a position in certain companies. And so that's a loaded question. And we could spend multiple weeks talking about that question particularly. So pretty broad.
Gregory Spiris says, tomorrow, can't wait. Yeah, I was text messaging with an investor we all respect a lot. And he just said to me at one point, you guys are doing it right. And I really feel that way. Our service to our members, our ability to sort of help people make that jump. We'll take Max Lucas's comment, then we will go to our finisher. And I'll let Matt Cochran lead the finisher process. As a younger investor, tools like 7investing, tools like And Investing is what got me involved with investing. Also, zero commission trades and Robinhood. I know Robinhood can be controversial, but I learned some great lessons. I don't recommend you go to Robinhood only for customer service reasons, but there are all sorts of opportunities to get zero commission trades. There are platforms like ours that can help you with how to trade. I personally use TD Ameritrade. If I was signing up now, I think I'd use Schwab because they sell slices of stocks. I just signed up with Coinbase to, in theory, buy crypto, which I have never done, but I wanted to see the process of it. But the finisher, Sam Bailey, if you want to bring it up, is actually a question Matt Cochran asked on Twitter. Matt, feel free to read the question and give your thoughts first.
Yeah, so as we all know, the big tech companies that we're all so familiar with, they all reported earnings this week, and they all reported great earnings. So out of those stocks, like how many do you directly own, not through indexing? And, I am long 4 out of 5. I don't think it's a surprise out of anybody who follows me that I'm bullish on most of these names. I have exposure to all of these, not directly. Simon Erickson, how about you?
Yeah, big tech. Big tech continues to crush it, right, Matt? I mean, this is one that It seems like every $1 trillion keeps adding another trillion. We were talking not too long ago about the first companies reaching $1 trillion, and now we're at $2 trillion and $3 trillion. Now we're going to be soon talking in a couple of years about which companies are worth $10 trillion. Big tech companies continue to perform the stock market. It's very impressive.
And the point of this wasn't necessarily to talk about these companies. I think the underlying point that this poll answers is that as much as you could talk about valuations and companies, is that winners win. Is that good companies historically. Now, can you stop being a good company? Yes. IBM maybe has stopped being a good company. I hate to pick on them. They're super nice. Their public relations people are really wonderful. But they've obviously stumbled. They've made some mistakes. Some of the great computer makers have over the years stumbled. So like a Dell, which has gone back and forth on public markets. But the true titans tend to be the true titans. And I don't know who watched the NFL draft last night. Simon, I know you did. So I'll close out with a little bit. Did you notice how much Trevor Lawrence looks like the blonde quarterback in Remember the Titans? That was all I could think about, was that he looked like the California dude.
California kid, yeah.
With that, if you'd like to get in touch with us, that is info@7investing.com. That's question about your membership, questions about how to use your membership. We do a call the third Friday of every month for new members. But if you sign up tomorrow and have questions about our May picks and how to use them and how to use past picks, we're happy to answer those. A lot of them will have sort of already have the answer, so it won't be a big thing for Steve to do. Steve, don't plan on having any fun tomorrow. It's going to be a long day with email. If you would like to interact with us on social media, please don't share pics if you're a member. That is @7investing. We are very active. I have my phone in my hand like 80% of the time, and I love talking to all of you today. I had a great exchange with someone about working conditions at Amazon today that sort of gave a different perspective. So we are always happy to talk to people. No trolls. We keep it positive. We like to be upbeat here at 7investing. For the entire 7investing team, minus Max Schatzko, who is, of course, on assignment, for Anirban, who did this taped, we appreciate you watching. We will see you live on Monday. Thank you.